Congressman and member of the House Homeland Security Committee, Congressman James Walkinshaw. Congressman, thanks for being here. Let's talk about how Senate Democrats are reacting to this situation. They're signaling they will block this bill. Senate Republicans seem unlikely to separate the funding for DHS from the rest of the bills that the House passed. Do you want to see your colleagues in the Senate block the entire package, even if that means a partial shutdown?
I want to see the Senate take a strong stand to protect the American people from this lawless Department of Homeland Security. And there's a simple solution with respect to the other bills for the Republican leadership to separate the DHS funding bill, for Speaker Johnson to call the House back. There's no reason we couldn't return on Thursday or Friday, pass the other bills, and negotiate a solution to protect the American people from the Department of Homeland Security. That's what I want to see happen. If it doesn't happen, this will be the second Trump shutdown in this Congress, and I hope it doesn't last as long as the first.
Obviously, there's been somewhat of a change in tone from your Republican colleagues around this particular shooting by ICE, different than what we saw in the Renee Good situation. Do you feel as though the fact that you're seeing Republicans call for an investigation, is this a turning point?
I hope it's a turning point. I wish it hadn't taken this, but I hope it's a turning point. And I think, look, some Republicans are responding to the American people who immediately and wholesale rejected the lies that came from the Trump administration after Alex Pretti's killing. The bald-faced nature of their lies, I think, made this situation even worse for them. But look, we have a situation now where the Department of Homeland Security has killed, gunned down 2 Americans in the streets of Minneapolis in a short period of time. And even for Republicans in Congress who have supported the Trump administration's, in my view, reckless mass deportation machine, this machine that they've put together, they're starting to get nervous right now. And I hope more of them will speak out.
So in your conversations that you've had with your Republican colleagues on Homeland Security, or in the House more broadly, do you feel as though there's any kind of openness to the kinds of reforms to ICE that Democrats are calling for?
The honest answer to that is no. I haven't seen a demonstrated openness to the kind of reforms. And by the way, these are reforms that Americans are calling for. Whether you look at the polls, whether you listen to your constituents, I know Republicans are hearing similar things from their constituents. American people want a secure border. They want immigration laws enforced, but they don't want masked secret police gunning people down in the streets. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot of openness to tangible reforms, but I hope that will change over the coming days and weeks.
And what kind of reforms are you specifically looking for? We know that Senator Schumer told his conference today their message is restrain, reform, and restrict ICE. We've heard some of your other Democrats go further, actually calling for an outright abolition of ICE. Where do you stand? Where do you think the reform should come?
Well, one, long term, I think we have to take down and rebuild the entire infrastructure. It's not just ICE. Alex Pretti wasn't killed by ICE. He was killed by CBP. We have other federal law enforcement agencies now engaged in a lot of this brutality. All of it has to be reformed and rebuilt from the ground up in a way that's consistent with our Constitution and our values. Immediately in this funding bill, I think there should be a ban on masks. There should be a requirement that officers identify themselves just as our local police do across the country. There should be a requirement for warrants for detentions and arrests. There should be real use of force standards that aren't just written down on paper, but are enforced, and officers who violate them should be disciplined and pulled off the streets and fired. Those are basic, simple things that every responsible law enforcement agency at the local and state level in the country does. There's no reason federal agencies shouldn't do them as well.
So just to clarify, though, do you feel as though ICE can continue on as long as it gets the needed reforms? You're not in favor of abolishing ICE?
I want to change all of it. ICE, CBP, the entire immigration enforcement structure should be reorganized. ICE under Donald Trump is completely broken. It all has to be reformed. But again, it's not just ICE. It's CBP and other agencies as well that have been involved in this brutality. All of it has to be taken down, new leadership, new policies restructured and reformed. That's not going to happen under this administration, realistically. So right now we have to fight for the protections that the American people are demanding.
If we go back to the conversation around government funding and the possibility, even as you suggest, that the DHS budget is pulled out, the DHS spending plan, I should say, is pulled out and everything else gets passed, that would still mean that DHS would go a period of time without funding. Right now, they oversee really important agencies like FEMA. I mean, you're right smack dab in the middle of this massive winter storm that grips much of the East Coast. Are you concerned that these agencies that have nothing to do with these border enforcement policies could be in trouble and could face hardship if this DHS package is not passed?
Well, you mentioned FEMA. We have to point out that as we speak, the Trump administration is effectively dismantling FEMA, but set that aside. Yes, I'm concerned about that, but the situation that we are in right now is unsustainable. We cannot allow federal agents to brutalize the American people, to kill them in the streets. There have been 2,300 documented instances where courts have found that ICE, CBP, and others have illegally detained people, including hundreds of American citizens. In Minnesota, they're detaining people, not able to charge them because they violated no laws, detaining them for hours or days, and then dropping them off in remote locations when it's 20 degrees below zero. This kind of behavior cannot continue.
And then finally, you visited Minnesota in the wake of the death of Renee Good. You and your other House Democrats also spoke to Governor Walz about what's next. What can you tell us about that conversation? And how do you feel like Democrats on the ground should be responding?
Well, look, one of the things Governor Walz has said privately and publicly is that this is a hugely challenging moment for Minnesota, and Minnesotans are rising to the challenge. We have seen thousands of Minnesotans, by and large, peacefully protesting, observing, recording the actions of ICE, CBP, and others. When I went to Minnesota, I thanked them for their patriotism. I think the folks involved in that work who are doing it peacefully, at unfortunately great risk to themselves, are doing incredible service to our republic right now. And Governor Walz has shared that and communicated that as well. He also sees this as political retribution. You know, Donald Trump lost Minnesota 3 times in his own addled mind. He believes that he won the election in Minnesota 3 times, and he's taking that frustration out on the people of Minnesota. That's clearly a motivation here.
Okay, Congressman James Walkinshaw, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ryan.